All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Acolyte Day. Cheers, buddy. It's Acolyte Day officially. We can have a beer because we're not so damn busy with the NBA playoffs or with work or kids or social life or whatever the hell is going on.
Dude, how long has it been since we've had a beer on the pod?
It's been a very long. It's been many episodes. Many.
I think it's been months.
It's been a long time. We did have a stretch where we weren't recording very much. We did like one recording in like 38 days at one point, but life calls.
Like legitimately a beer will give me a massive hangover nowadays. So I don't know.
We're so washed at this point.
Yeah, I don't know why.
No, it's so funny. This last weekend, I've had more alcohol because I've been more free in the evenings. There's been no NBA Finals games since last week on Thursday through to this week on Thursday, and so I've been able to go have dinners and enjoy a cocktail or something like that.
Human at night.
And dude, I immediately just get the hangover after two beers.
It takes nothing now. Yeah, welcome to 30s, I guess.
Acolyte.
Yeah, dude, we're here.
Dude, what are your first impressions, man?
Overall, I really, really liked it. I want to do first impressions at the end.
You want to do first impressions?
Yeah. So if that's okay. If that's okay, let's focus on the plot. Where do you think we're going with this?
Well, a lot of stuff went exactly as I was expecting, in the sense that we had kind of figured out from the Star Wars Explained video that we talked about that there was probably twins involved in this murder mystery.
He was so on with that.
Yes. We talked about that little kind of scrawny guy that helped. This ends up being the guy who makes the poison at the end. We talked about Poison Guy. And when we talked about the trailer, one of the things I kind of pitched to you was the concept of who's the guy that was one of Palpatine's kind of inner circle people, Sate Pestage, right?
Uh-huh.
So there's this concept in the Bane books and in the Plagueis book that the Order of the Sith Lords has the two primary Sith, but then they also have a willingness to potentially train lower level Force users as assassins. That's basically what Darth Maul was, right? And then another big thing was they would have essentially close confidants who would be fixers, assassins, whatever it was,
money men,
that they would would handle their business. And so Sate Pestage was one of the guys that when they needed to order an assassination or something like that, they would kind of go through him or something like that. And these guys were in the close confidence of the Sith. And I found that really fascinating because in very Sith-like behavior, as soon as he had a couple of lightsabers in his face, he was like, actually it was her.
Yeah, I know.
Let me go.
Dude, you gotta take care of yourself. That is part of the Sith code, right?
It's very Sithy.
But he probably is. Do you think he's low level like that, or do you think he's more important?
I think he's absolutely low level like that.
Do you? Even though he was reciting the Sith code,
he recited the Sith code. He also when May tried to kind of go after him, he had some capability. But don't you feel Sate Pestage would have been able to do some of that shit
maybe?
Too?
Yeah,
and
maybe.
She's not a Sith yet.
She's not, and dude,
she has Force capabilities, but she literally can't even fuck with one of these Jedi when she's fighting.
You're right. And we might be getting ahead of ourselves. It's not confirmed Sith yet.
It's Sith. The director said,
I know.
It's Sith.
I know, but then she was also whatever you think this is, it's not. And so do you think she's just laying little eggs in our brain trying to get us to think it's Sith and it's not?
So one thing I want to teach you about Star Wars, okay? I'm not sure if you've seen all of the movies, okay? But
Star Wars?
when a guy has a black cape and suit, and then he has a helmet, and then when he talks, when it makes a different kind of muffled voice,
usually,
and then when he turns on a red lightsaber, almost exclusively Sith.
Almost always, but not always. Dude, I cannot wait to find out who he is.
I know, I'm convinced he's the apprentice. I do think it's fascinating how they talked about how, because what's his face, Soul is entirely on top of this whole situation. Yeah. He's kind of putting it all together.
He's cool, dude. He reminds me of Qui-Gon.
Oh yeah, he's got Qui-Gon vibes.
Yeah.
Even in the sense that he's a little bit rebelling against the Order in some ways. He doesn't really want to do things the way they want to do it. But I think that one of the key kind of directions that this is going is we are going to eventually identify what this guy's pathway is to finding his next apprentice.
Right.
And I think the idea is she is supposed to kill a Jedi without using a weapon to demonstrate her worthiness.
I agree.
To this Sith guy.
That is what it seems like, but they've spent so much time showing her go after each Jedi's lightsaber as she's fighting them. I really think that she might get some bonus points if she can get the saber and kill him with her own weapon.
How is she going to kill the Jedi though?
With a lightsaber.
No, but she's allowed to use their lightsaber to kill them.
Yeah.
That's the point. She has to attack
Right.
without a weapon.
Right. All I'm saying is they've spent a lot of time showing scenes where she's like reaching towards lightsabers and
because
missing
as soon
them.
as she grabs the lightsaber, she uses it
Cool.
against the dude, and she
Agreed.
completes her mission.
Yeah, Jay, that's what I'm saying. Bonus points, okay? She gets bonus points from the Sith dude, whoever he is.
Were you under the impression that she was gonna lie and say she killed this dude without a weapon, even though she poisoned him? Because that was kind of what the other dude.
I had
hinted
that
at.
feel. Yeah, I had that vibe too. Because she's like, don't tell him about this. Either number one, him helping her.
Yeah.
Or number two, the fact that she used poison.
And by the way, little message for May: like, I don't think lying to the Sith Lord is gonna fly.
Yeah,
I think that's gonna end poorly.
Let me just tell you, being a Sith expert myself, that you should chill out with the lies to a Sith Lord or potential Sith Lord.
I liked Soul's mention of like how his master is trying really hard to conceal his appearance. Like one of the things, like, because there's a cheesiness to the whole like helmet and voice alteration stuff. We even see this in The Last Jedi when Snoke is like, "Get that stupid helmet off your face."
To Kylo.
To
Kylo Ren.
But like at the same time, in this particular era, because we got to remember, like, so again, for all the people who don't follow too much of the history of the Sith, 1,000 years ago, the Sith were many, and they would essentially try to conquer the Republic through strength of arms.
Yeah.
And what would happen is inevitably they'd either turn on each other, or a couple of lower level Sith would team up and pool their power together to defeat a stronger master. They weakened themselves, whereas the Jedi always came together.
Right.
They stuck together. They were part of the larger vision. They were selfless, and they were able to win. And so Darth Bane essentially identified this as a problem, culled the Order, and like literally killed all the Sith.
Right.
And then he started up a new version of the Sith Order where they would operate in secrecy. Their advantage was secrecy and subterfuge. And so essentially the Sith have been existing as master and apprentice behind the scenes for 900 years, flowing into this show, which is awesome. But like that's so essentially. But in terms of the way the rule of two works, like the apprentice needs to overthrow the master to kind of take the mantle of Sith Lord,
which is accepted. Like that is known by the master that they're going to get overthrown at some point.
Yeah, Bane like preaches that. It's like in the third Bane book, he's pissed off because Darth Xana has not attempted to overthrow him yet. He's like, what is this girl doing?
Right.
But like, so essentially, the way I'm interpreting this is this apprentice guy is essentially trying to set up challenges or to filter that kind of thing out, because one of the things we see in the third Bane book, like as Xana's looking for her apprentice, she finds Set Hearth, and she's like, this guy sucks.
Yeah.
She's like, he's a douche. She's like only into money.
He's like super into himself.
Yeah. Like it's so like, I think the idea is I would imagine if you were willing to kill 4 Jedi to go to do it in this way, also as a matter of revenge.
Right.
That it's kind of a pretty clear indicator that she's committed to the ultimate kind of goal here.
The ultimate goal. Yeah, she
definitely seems pissy about it, though. Did you notice that?
I know, and she seemed uncomfortable about trying to kill them.
A little bit. Well, she didn't. She threw that thing at Soul's feet.
Yeah, exactly. Which we see that in Bane, Darth Bane, when he's assuming his identity as a Sith Lord, he does have issues when he's killing people, certain people that mean a lot to him, right?
Yeah, at least early.
And then we see that with Xana as well.
So what the scene that I'm specifically referring to, if you remember, when she says that piece is a lie to the guy, she says it with like almost like, yeah, I get it, like
piece
is a lie.
Like
she's kind of like,
yeah, I get it.
Sith
like
code.
Yeah, that's the Sith code. Yeah, we know, but yeah, she seems like very motivated, like for a goal rather than the cause. If that makes sense.
Do you think May's going to get redeemed?
Yes, I think that there's a good chance.
I think that's where this is heading.
There has to be some huge, not loopholes, but there's going to be some fixtures of the plot that occur that we have zero clue, right? Like I think we definitely have to be ready for something just absolutely out of left field to happen.
Well, because that's what the director told us.
That's what the director told us. So like I'm super, super cautious going into this as far as like any predictions.
Yeah, I would imagine that the way this ends is let's just do this. Let's do our best guesses. Okay. After 2 episodes, 6 remaining. All right. My best guess is May gets redeemed sooner than later.
Oh.
And the entire show tilts toward tracking down the Sith Lord.
Oh.
And then they basically locate him and then that's where that kind of like final confrontation takes place. What about you?
Okay. And you were talking about the Sith Lord actually being
the apprentice. Yeah. He has to be the apprentice because why would the Sith Master be looking for another apprentice?
True.
Like, unless his
on
apprentice
such
failed.
a low
Yeah.
level too,
Yeah.
especially with May, who's hardly showing intense Sithery type stuff. Like
No,
she's
for sure.
barely showing.
She was,
Sith shit,
she's
in
not,
my
yeah,
opinion.
she's not that powerful. Just to put it
She's not that
simply.
powerful, and her heart's not 100% in it. Because like after she killed Indira, she seemed bothered, in my opinion.
She seemed a little bothered by killing Indara. She seemed a little bit hesitant to go after Soul. Let's circle back to this because the way we hear it as the story is told is May starts the fire. The fire kills all of her family, including May, we think.
Yeah.
But May turns out to survive. But Soul seems to think like the way we're taught to believe the pathway of the story is Soul rescues Osha.
Uh-huh.
They leave. She becomes a Padawan learner. She trains with him for 12 years.
Yep.
And then for the last 6 years, she's since left the Order, and now she's
yeah.
being this ship mechanic, right? And so if that is the case, then Soul did not do anything wrong. He rescued her.
Mm-hmm.
Something shady happened on this planet, which is Brendok, where the fire took place. Something shady happened.
Weird. Yeah.
And then what was the Master Torben?
Yeah.
Master Torben had a hand in that shadiness.
Torben's beard is super distracting.
Yeah, it's very like
It's very glued upon.
Yeah.
It looks like it was glued on
it
his
looks
face.
like a bike tire is like going around his chin. Like
That's exactly what it looks
there's
like.
a weird spherical nature to like the curliness of
bike
the beard.
tire. Dude, yeah. Master Torben is the youngest old guy or the oldest young guy I've ever seen in my life.
That
like,
actor is maybe 27 years old.
yeah, but then he's got like, and I've got a receding hairline, so don't freak out when I say this, but like, that dude's receding hairline is way too intense for how lush his beard was. There's something going on with that guy. And then he was like, yeah, okay, I'll kill myself. Like,
Yeah, so
what?
The ease with which he killed himself and the immediate amount of remorse that he expressed made it pretty clear that he was
had
up
a
to some
wicked
shady
past,
shit.
yeah.
So I wonder if we learn more about that from Kelnaka. I do think it's fascinating too that Master Torben took the vow of silence.
Yeah, it was like called the
Kelnaka
Barash
has
vow.
disappeared off to the edge of the universe on this forest planet, right? A
Yeah.
planet that Osha didn't even recognize when it was brought up.
Yeah.
So like I would imagine it's possible that Soul and who's our Matrix chick, blanking on her name.
Indira.
Soul and Indara I think they were probably good. But then again, Indara kind of recognized May. Did you notice that?
Yes, I think she recognized
And warned her not to go down that
She
path.
says you.
Yeah. But she also kind of brushed her hair to the side and looked at the tattoo
You're
on
right.
her face.
So she knew the difference between the sisters, probably.
Yeah. So my guess is that Indara and Kelnaka and our Torben guy were all kind of in on it, and Soul was kind of like must not have been in on it because Soul doesn't seem to know.
So, but I'm not quite convinced that they were doing like quote shady stuff. I think they probably just botched something and couldn't live with themselves.
Dude,
with it.
Torben looked guilty as fuck.
But that's how Jedi are. Like if they let like one person die after saving an entire planet, they're like, oh, like I'm so sad.
Commit suicide though?
That's not very Jedi like.
No.
Yeah. Especially after being in some like meditative state for 10 years, not talking to anybody.
Yeah. I think to your point, there's just going to be so much revealed over the course of the next several episodes, and I think that that's a route that they will explain to us.
Here's my only predictions so far. I think that there's probably about a 95% chance that both Yord and Soul die during this season because both of them are so likable. And for shows,
Yord turned it around in episode 2. Yord was a little douchey in episode 1.
He was, but that's what I mean. He's like so happy-go-lucky, and I
Yeah.
think people end up really, really liking that over the course of a show. Like people can identify with that. You know what I mean?
Yord turned it around. I liked Yord by the end of episode 2.
Yeah, he's cool. I like him. I think that there's a very high chance that both of those characters died this season.
Well, I mean,
There's a good chance that all of them die.
There's a good chance that a lot of Jedi die.
No,
because
you're
there's
right.
A Sith involved.
Because there's a Sith involved, and they have to stay under the radar. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that in all likelihood, I actually, my prediction is that's going to go a route where at least one of them survives, and then they kind of bury the secret, so to speak, like we talked about.
They might bury the secret,
like we talked about in our preview.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think mass death is almost a certainty in this episode.
Oh yeah,
there's just so many. There's just so many in this episode or season. I mean, yeah, there's just so many Jedi that are involved in that final confrontation, and I think that like there's also the trailers. They always overdo the damn trailers.
I know. You feel like you've seen too much.
There's
like
a
you see
showdown.
Yord with it black eyes, like being.
Yeah, but that happens when they go visit the witches.
Yeah,
because there's always witches doing.
I know the fact that we even know about the witches is kind of
we shouldn't know about the witches.
Yeah,
they
that's
overdid
kind of dumb. Yeah,
like another thing too is like we know that Soul ends up in a one-on-one confrontation with the Sith, and we also know that Soul's involved in a massive like 13 Jedi versus one Sith confrontation. You do the math.
For sure.
It's not like they all like,
for sure.
Like, hey, you got this one. We're going to go back to the ship,
Something interesting that I just thought of when I was thinking about the previews with Yord's like black eyes with his like pupils like completely blown up. May does that for like a split second during Osha's vision with her. Where she's talking about how the fact that she wants to like kill all the Jedi, and she kind of goes crazy for a little bit and then comes back to. There's always a chance that the witches could be involved in some like possession type stuff too. There's always that possibility.
I'm really curious to where the witches fit into this story because the opening scroll specifically mentions a group of people training in the Force on the fringes of the galaxy in secret. Now, that could mean the witches. That could also mean the Order of the Sith Lords. Like, it could mean...
Sith Lords? That feels like too many Sith Lords.
No. I mean, literally meaning master, apprentice, all of these other confidants that they're training. Like, that could also be the group that is training in the Force. But I don't think that May is receiving training.
Oh, you think that she's purely a freelance and this is her entry into the game? So Saul seems to think that she's being trained because he mentions the fact that her master has gone through great extent to hide his identity.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is like the master is clearly not doing much to train her though at this point. So,
every once in a while, though, he lights it up. He's like, "This is yours," and he lights up his red lightsaber in front of her. And she's like, "Damn, that's pretty sick." It
was like Darth Maul at the end of the Han Solo movie, where it's like, we have to turn on the lightsaber at least once in this episode.
He's like, "All right, I'll do it. I'll do it once for May."
Pretty cool, huh? Where was I going with?
Sorry, dude, we were talking about training, formal training versus.
Oh yeah. Okay, so with Soul, so in the second Bane book, when Bane is ready to like take Xana as his apprentice, he at the last minute is like, "Okay, here's the deal. You're gonna meet me on Onderon in 10 days," and the little 10-year-old girl's like, "What?"
What?
And he's like, "You're gonna meet me on Onderon in 10 days.
If you can't make it, then you suck.
If you can't make it, then you're not worthy of being a Sith."
Right.
And then she like cries and freaks out. And she has like a little meltdown, and then he gets on a ship and he leaves. And so basically, she has to walk around on the surface of Ruusan for a while, randomly tracks down a ship full of like Republic soldiers that are just kind of running, basically post-battle survey after the
really
bomb
nice
went
people.
Off. Yeah, and she murders all of them in cold blood, including children.
Yeah.
on board the ship with a blaster rifle
in front of their parents.
In front of their parents.
Yeah.
Then she moves all the dead bodies into the back of the ship.
And lets them rot.
And then she puts autopilot onto Onderon.
Yeah.
And then she just like literally sits there and eats ration packs and like throws the trash into the back of the ship with all the dead bodies. That's like literally what happens in the book. So like that's
and
what
she's
happens.
Messed up by it. Like that bothered her, but she's obviously a psycho.
Palpatine the same thing. Like one of the specific challenge that Plagueis presented him was emancipate yourself.
Yeah.
If you can emancipate yourself, then you will prove yourself worthy to join the Order of the Sith Lord.
This is a very compelling argument, Jay.
So
this is very compelling because when Palpatine does finally kill his family, again, he's super messed up. And then Plagueis, one of your favorite lines ever in Star Wars, Palpatine's just waiting for Plagueis to come pick him up. and it takes him like a week or something.
2 weeks.
Like that. 2 weeks. And Palpatine's pissed when he finally gets there. He's like, "Where have you been?" And Plagueis is just like, "Dude, I've been running the galaxy. Like, who do you think you are?"
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Plagueis is literally like, "Did you think I was just going to drop everything because you decided to kill your family at that point in time?" Like, it's like, I came when I was available. Thank you. Plagueis is an excellent book. You should read it.
Dude, that's an absolutely incredible comp.
So that's kind of the way I'm viewing that whole situation. Now,
do you think there's other acolytes? Because she called herself an acolyte, right? Do you think that there's other acolytes?
The Sith referred to her as an acolyte.
True. Like,
and there was kind of a weird,
like a group of them, and they're essentially auditioning for him.
One of two things: either they're auditioning for the Sith to become the apprentice, or it's like some sort of weird because like one of the things that happens too is we find out like the Sith tried multiple ways to kind of like subvert the galaxy over that 1,000-year period. Like the Bith, Darth Tenebris wanted to do it through Bith science. Plagueis had a different idea. This guy has a different idea. They all have like different ideas for how to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And so like it's very possible that they're just trying to go about this a different route. Like who knows? Mm-hmm. But my best guess is that like because the other guy does not seem intent on killing random Jedi, the little scrawny dude.
No.
He seems to be kind of like an ancillary part of this operation. So it's very possible that she is the primary. She's the only one lashing out trying to kill Jedi.
True.
And it's obviously a massive deal. Like it's a huge deal. Like everything in the galaxy, as far as the Jedi are concerned, is like stopping to solve this problem.
True. Yeah.
And one of the things that was in the opening scroll too is like she's risking exposure in search of revenge. I'm really curious too, like whether or not she was actually ordered to do that by the Sith. Because it does risk exposure. This show ends with the Sith getting discovered.
True.
So it's kind of complicated in that respect.
It is really complicated. It is really complicated. What do you think that the show is doing like really, really well? Has there been anything that's caught your eye?
The mystery, like we're going to get into some of the specifics in the cinematography later. The cinematography was good, but like a little weird at times.
It was, yeah, I agree with that.
I think they were trying really hard to make it feel like a different era of Star Wars.
Yes, I agree, especially with the way that they were portraying the ships.
Mm-hmm. The ships were very different. Nothing was recognizable.
No, number one, it was really cool to see a Vector. That was really dope.
Yeah. Explain a Vector to the.
So a Vector is essentially like the main ship that like a Jedi would use in order to gallivant, with their missions, and it was like really big during the High Republic as far as like each Jedi had their Vector, right? And I think if I remember right, the Jedi had to engage their lightsaber into their lightsabers were the console of the Vector in order to be able to fly it. So that's cool. Like the Vectors, in my opinion, feel like Star Wars. They look like Star Wars to me. Most of the other ships in this show, though, in my opinion, Jay, did not feel like Star Wars at all. It felt annoyingly Star Trek-esque. And when you ask me, like, how do you feel about the show overall, that's immediately what came to mind, and that's why I didn't want to lead with that, because I'm liking the show. Like, I didn't want to like start like the pod this time with a negative start, because I am liking it, but there are certain things that feel way too Star Trek-y, in my opinion. The ships being one of them, and then some of the aliens, the way that the aliens look.
The Padawan with the
Yord's.
The Snark?
Yeah, I know, dude. Yord's, is that Yord's Padawan?
I think so, yeah.
Yord's Padawan.
Yeah,
Yord's out of Star Trek.
Snark.
And then what's the Jackie? Jackie doesn't feel super Star Wars-y to me for some reason. I don't know why.
Jackie? Yeah, Jackie. Everyone likes Jackie. You're gonna get yourself in some trouble.
I know. No, Jackie's cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, but for some reason, she just doesn't look very Star Wars-y to me. But overall, I think that they're doing a great job. I love. Okay, here's what's cool about it too. The opening scene started with like a spacescape, like goes down into a planet that is like so Star Wars.
That's classic Star Wars.
Classic Star Wars start of a film. The other thing too is they do. And I say this in a loving term, they do like the really cheesy scene change, like the old school PowerPoint cheesy that. Scene change where like scrolls to the side or like scrolls up or something like that. So they're doing that, and I very much so appreciate that.
I saw the Star Trek-y ships. The dead giveaway is like, remember whatever the Star Trek ship is, like the three massive engines with like the little tail going down and then like the disc at the front. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And specifically the Jedi freighter that they took or whatever their transport ship that they took.
That pulled me out of the Star Wars universe.
Hardcore Star Wars.
Yeah, when I saw that, it took me out of it.
The one thing I would say is like the vectors are cool, and like
Yeah.
I would assume that like actual military capital ships would probably look cooler. Like
Yeah.
we see in the shows a galaxy at war, and we're seeing military ships.
Yeah,
you know what
true.
I mean. Whereas now it's not a galaxy at war; it's a bunch of transport ships.
No, that's a good point.
But I think to your point, I agree, and I think the main point was a transparent attempt to try to make it feel like it was 100 years in the past.
Yeah, and I'm down for that.
Which I understood.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally down for that. Mm-hmm.
The was there anything else in terms of the production that caught your attention?
You know, so I'm really
What about
big
the Jedi
into
uniforms?
Jedi uniforms are cool. I'm down for that. I think it makes sense, and it fit the time period very well.
Tell them about the High Republic and the Jedi wearing weird shit.
Yeah, I mean, what you talked about is like Jason jokes around and he says the High Republic called the High Republic because the Jedi think very highly of themselves.
Yeah, the Jedi are
Right.
It's like the South Park episode where they enjoy to like sniff their own farts out of wine glasses. Like that's literally the Jedi around this time.
And you can kind of get a flavor of that too, because throughout these last two episodes, we saw some very non-Jedi stuff happening.
Yeah.
Mainly the fact that they were just entering everybody's brains who they wanted to.
Yeah, that was a little. That was
they were pretty.
It's like you haven't told me.
I know. It's like immediately.
That's what Kylo Ren did. Actually.
Yeah. So people don't like that shit, turns out, and that's a really good way to make people not like you.
Soul feels no issue just ripping into someone's brain and just getting the answers.
Yeah, so like they were wearing the attire of that timepiece, and I think that made sense for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I like in general it felt like High Republic to me in the way that they were dressing, kind of just the pompous kind of attitude and the way that they were all carrying themselves. I like how they're kind of starting to parse out some of like the Jedi politics too. Like, you know, there's like they don't really talk about this a ton in the movies, but it's like you go from Padawan learner to Jedi Knight to Jedi Master. You get elected to specific councils. Like there's different councils where that are responsible of different things. Like the Council of First Knowledge is in charge of like basically all like Force artifacts that exist in the galaxy that they pursue and like inventory, and then like, you know, obviously the actual Jedi Council at the top where we see Yoda. Yoda did not make an appearance in the first two episodes.
Really quick, I want to touch on something you just said too. Like it does feel pompous and it feels very like title heavy, because when Osha sees Yord again, she's like, oh, like, you know, you're still in it. You're a Jedi Knight now. And he's like, I've been a Jedi Knight for 2 years. Yeah. Like, he's like so into himself. And when he said that, especially like right after or right around the time that we see him like doing his laundry and kind of being like a little bit strong and stupid, like that type of character, like being a Jedi Knight all of a sudden just didn't feel like that big of a deal. Whereas you think, you know, in contrast to when we see someone being knighted, aka Anakin, and that feels huge, right? It feels like earth changing when he finally gets that title, right? And
he got it really young though. He was knighted at like 16 or
he did,
like
but he deserved it, right? And like, but to my point is like during the High Republic, they were so into their titles, and they were so into like being pompous, and then we did see that change into like the Clone Wars, and it did feel different.
It's interesting because the Jedi by the time of the Phantom Menace are like they're in like these really drab robes. They're they're like a little less pompous, but at the same time, it's weird because they're portrayed as being at their weakest state then,
right?
And I think primarily, like I think most of what infiltrated the Jedi Order at that point was more political. Like it was very
totally
politically oriented,
because they weren't that into themselves in comparison.
Yeah, and again, for those of you guys who don't know the Star Wars history, like originally the Jedi were the chancellors of the Republic. It was around the time 1,000 years before a Phantom Menace that you would have Jedi chancellors, and then the Jedi went to war. Then they started electing normal chancellors, and then they demilitarized the Jedi. After that, that's when they became counselors. And the Rusan reformations were where they actually made them like subservient to the Senate, so they had to like serve the Senate and stuff like that. All geeky Star Wars stuff that we
just let us tell you about.
Yeah,
just believe us.
My wife lets me do a Star Wars podcast.
Yeah. So we're complete nerds.
But overall, I enjoyed it. I thought, what did you think of the combat stuff?
I thought it was really cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
very Kung Fu-esque.
Very Kung Fu-esque, and I really liked the way that they were portraying the Force. I really liked that. I thought that was cool. I was totally down for that.
Yeah, I was a little like, it was a little weird having the dude in his meditative stance with like a sphere of repulsion around him.
Yeah, I didn't quite understand that. That's kind of new to us. I don't know if there's any big Star Wars geeks out there that can tell us more about that. But that's new to me.
Yeah, that was a little much.
Yeah, Master Torben just like having this force field around him.
I just couldn't get over the bike tire beard. That
was pretty distracting. Yeah. I mean, I was thinking like more when I first saw it, I was like, okay, like battle meditation, but no, like they're calling it the Barash Vow.
Yeah, which we can just assume is like he's communing with the Force and he's not.
But is he? Because it turns out he was like pretty ready to be just kind of an a-hole and kill himself in about 3 seconds from seeing May. So it's like, was he in that great of a state? And like, what sort of power does that take as a Jedi to be able to do that? You know, like that seems very exceptional. And
Sol seemed to think that he would chat to him if he got into the room.
He did, yeah. It was just that was odd for me as like a big Star Wars nerd. That did not feel great.
All in all, there was also like just the open flames in space.
Dude, that's classic though. That's what it always is.
That's kind of the point I'm trying to make though. Is like there's a fine line. Like Rian Johnson, I will never forgive you for lobbing lasers.
No way.
Yeah, Rian. Yeah. No matter how damn good the Knives Out movies are, and they're fucking good.
They're good.
Right?
They're good.
No matter how good the Knives Out movies are, I will never forgive you.
Yeah.
For lobbing laser fire through space. And here's why. Did you ever watch Star Wars?
No, but he says he's a huge fan of it, so he deserves to direct the film.
Oh my gosh, man.
Did you feel like they were being exceptionally cautious or no? Because you had read. Tell our viewers about what you had read and what I mean by that question.
So Rotten Tomatoes gave Acolyte a 85?
I think it was like 83 or something.
It was like a solid rating. But one of the negative reviews was like it feels like they're hesitant to take risks, and it feels like a major brand management. My thing with that is those people who have written the reviews have seen all the episodes. I'm pretty sure. So it's am I wrong about that, by the way? When a new series releases, do critics get to see all of the reviews? I'm actually not sure. Anyway,
or all the
someone
episodes.
in the comments knows. But yeah, so like I think that it's possible that they're very delicate about how much they dive into Sith history, and this is something that bothers me in general about Disney's approach, because like we saw this with any of you guys who are Star Wars nerds out there who read the Dark Lords of the Sith novel, which was a novel post Disney purchase that involved Vader and Palpatine getting trapped on a planet by Cam Syndulla. And Cam Syndulla making like an assassination effort to kill, basically to end the Empire by cutting off the head, right? And in the book, like there's a lot of like Palpatine and Vader hanging out. But like if you've read the Bane books, if you've read the Plagueis books, like every time the Sith Lords hang out, like the Master is always counseling the apprentice, and he's like talking about.
It's usually some heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's usually heavy shit. It's usually historical shit. It's all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And instead, like Palpatine and Vader just talk about nothing. Because like you could tell Disney basically was like, okay, here's the deal. Like you get to write this book, but don't you dare talk about what happened before,
no new information.
And so like, and that's the thing. Like if they trap this into this situation where like they're like, okay, you're allowed to make this show called The Acolyte, but by the way, make sure you don't touch any history before where you're at. Like if they don't dive at all into where the Sith were before this, like that's kind of shitty. Like it's a missed opportunity.
I would love a Bane mention.
And like
that would be awesome.
Well, to make it clear, like we should get a Bane mention. Yeah, there should be a Bane mention.
Yes,
because
for sure.
If May were to become the apprentice, like the apprentice would need to explain Bane's rule of 2 to May.
Yes,
he would need to. But like the in general, like I just wish they had like a bigger picture kind of goal, because for instance, let's say Dave Filoni behind the scenes is like, all right, 2028. Knights of the Old Republic, we're covering Revan. Something like that.
Yeah.
Like, if that was the plan, then that should be, like, kind of in the works to where you could make a loose mention of it.
For sure.
At this point, very similar to some of the stuff we saw in early Mandalorian, where they kind of like made references to things that might happen in the future that ended up being brought up in Ahsoka, right? Like I think that's something that they could do. Like I thought a great example of that was Mandalorian season 3 when what's his face Moff Gideon asks for like some more shit. And then they give it to him. But then if you remember, Captain Pellion's in there talking about Thrawn.
Right.
You know, like because it's like they know Thrawn's in the hopper.
Yeah.
Thrawn's in the hopper. Thrawn's coming, you know, so we can make a reference to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it would be kind of shitty if they were just trapped in terms of story scope within this like little 5-year window, because that's just a missed opportunity. Because again, what makes Star Wars great is in A New Hope, you're sitting there as a kid watching as Luke lights up his lightsaber in front of Obi-Wan, and Obi-Wan's like, for 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic, before the Dark Times, before the Empire, and they break down all this stuff that happened in the Clone Wars, and your father died, and blah, 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 and like, there's lore to Star Wars. It's deep story building. It's no different than when you watch Game of Thrones, and they always talk about Aegon the Conqueror, who rode over with his 2 sisters' wives, and they rolled up on dragons. And they rolled up on dragons in Westeros, and they fucked shit up for a little while. And then it's like, here's the story about the First Men, and here's the White Walkers, and well, the White Walkers, they were originally created by this, and blah blah blah. And like, there's like deep story building is kind of inherent to what makes Star Wars great. And one of the things that is problematic with that, and is like with George R.R. Martin, for instance, is, you know, the entire scope of Game of Thrones was conceptualized by one person who has no boss, because he's the man who writes the story.
AKA George Lucas.
Yeah. Who's Tolkien.
Yeah.
With Lord of the Rings. Like all of it, like, as soon as it becomes corporatized, whatever the fuck you want to call it, it just loses some of that. It just loses some of that like
flavor,
narrative verb.
It doesn't taste homemade. It doesn't taste like grandma's cooking anymore.
Yeah. And I feel like we're just bitching.
We are,
but
bitching.
like at the end of the day, like I just hope Acolyte and Ahsoka and some of these shows on the horizon just kind of do a better job of like building on to Star Wars,
right?
Instead of, because it's already hard enough to tell an original story if you can't fit it into the larger scheme of things. And like when you trap these directors and producers within a very tiny window of what they're allowed to work with, it's like a fucking episode of some kitchen show where you're given 6 ingredients and asked to make something. It's like, that's great, but I'd rather have all the ingredients.
One of which is dog shit.
Yeah, it's like here's a pile of dog shit. Incorporate this
into the
your
show.
Brownies, please.
I'd better not be able to taste it.
Yeah.
We're going to give you an orange and some olives to put into your brownies. Cook something up.
Oh my gosh. Anything else you want to hit from this episode?
It was really cool to see a yellow lightsaber.
Yellow lightsaber,
live
always
action,
a power move.
always a power move. And there was the good old "I have a bad feeling about this" mentioned, which I thought was classic. Yeah,
that was kind of classic.
So like, there's
Star
little
Wars
stuff like that's the fan fodder, but it's not fan fodder that's distracting, right? Like that was subtle and classy, and it felt Star Wars-esque to me. Do you feel like, if you had to rate this from 0% or 100%, how Star Wars-y did these last 2 episodes feel to you?
It felt, I'd go like 80%.
Yeah.
There's some of it though, I'm just like realistic about, like, one, you're trying to build out a new era.
Right.
2, like, anytime you build out a new era, it's like for instance, I would imagine there were a lot of Star Wars fans who were older than us that didn't like the prequel trilogy because it just didn't feel like Star Wars in a lot of ways.
Good point.
The also, like, as all of us know, the entire economy of filmmaking and TV show making has changed over the last several years, and like now there is so much more CGI. You aren't doing real sets in fucking London. You're doing it, you're in like this weird sphere that is all like a giant LCD.
No, you're right, and it felt like that.
Yeah,
it did feel like that.
Exactly.
I agree.
And so, like, but I understand, like, if that's what it takes to get more Star Wars content, I'm kind of okay with that.
Right.
I like, if I were ranking the things that matter if I was ranking the things that mattered into a piece of Star Wars content to me, story is 1.
Agreed.
Acting is like 2, and then it's like large gap everything else. Like, to
I
me,
see.
like, it's why I enjoy Star Wars books so much.
I see.
Like,
That's interesting. Yeah.
as long as I'm into the story, I can get behind just about anything. For the record, you know what show doesn't have great, like, grand scale special effects? Is the original Star Wars trilogy. Great for the time. Great for us nostalgic Star Wars fans. But
I don't know, man. No.
It's not.
I disagree on that one.
Okay.
Here's why. Sorry.
No. Explain yourself, because this is a bad take.
The sets felt massive and grand in the original Star Wars, and
For 1977, yes.
No, in general, dude, seeing a Star Destroyer cruise around space felt big. You know, like that felt cool. That felt big. The Death Star felt big.
What about
like,
the dogfights over the Death Star in
the
episode
dogs?
4?
So those were modest because there's literally like 4 ships.
That's my point.
Yeah. So
They were limited.
They were very limited. You're right.
But you do it with your brain.
You do it with your brain, and as the viewer, you kind of have to give them some slack, and that's kind of your point too. And like, and you're saying like, if we can get Star Wars content, like you're okay without some huge, giant, elaborate set, right? Is that what you're saying? What
I'm saying is, I for the record, I get the point you're making, and I agree. I agree with Luke that there are some special effects that George Lucas pulled off in 4, 5, and 6. That are special and that
incredible.
And that hit home in a very unique way because they are practical
They're
effects.
practical effects.
I agree with all of that.
I love that.
That said, like, there's a lot of imagination as a Star Wars fan with those movies in terms of the dogfights and the space battles and stuff, just simply because they weren't capable of capturing what the opening scene of Revenge of the Sith looks like when you have a gigantic fleet battle over Coruscant.
Which is one of the most perfect scenes of all time.
So I want to be clear. I agree with you. But the point I'm trying to make is like we love 4, 5, and 6 anyway, because what really does it is
the plot.
The plot. What really does it is the dialogue. What really does it is the scale of whatever, like how important everything feels. And so to me, like when it comes to the Acolyte, I can deal with some cheesiness. I can deal with like some weird sets. I can deal with some weird looking ships. I would rather have that in great story than flip it around.
I feel you.
Because you know what the opposite looked like? It's Rise of Skywalker. And that movie sucked balls, man.
Yeah, it did.
It was so bad.
Yes. I would rate, as far as like overall Star Wars vibes right now, I would rate it as a solid 78. That sounds shitty, but it's actually not that bad. Like, that's actually pretty good because the plot so far has been pretty decent. Like, I will give them some points on the plot for sure. And I'm not trying to be like a big stickler here. Like, I'm really not. Like, but I do miss the clunky practical effects of the original Star Wars.
Too.
Like, I miss looking at a droid and thinking like, there's obviously a human in there. Like, that's cool to me. Like, that really feels good. And then not only that, but like the big thing for me is the music just hasn't hit the way it used to with like the original Star Wars. Like, the music just isn't quite there. Like, when you watch one of the original Star Wars, like when you hear that music, and I know I'm a little bit nostalgic, like I'll give myself that. Like, there's something about it that is truly magical. Like, can you think of one score in the last 2 episodes that you felt like hit home?
No,
they're really not there.
I think
they're not as grand.
I think the way they approach the music for the TV series is not the same.
You're right, and that's a really good point too. Yeah,
it's like they've been very clear between Ahsoka with the red scroll, this movie with the blue scroll. Like, they're very intent on making the series feel like not movies.
You're right. No, and that's a good take. And maybe I need to get over that because Andor's music didn't feel like Star Wars-y to me either. You know what I mean? So that's a good take. I'll give you that. Like, there are movie scores that are wildly powerful. And like, this might be a weird comparison, but like How to Train Your Dragon, the music in that movie is gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and it reminds me of Star Wars because it's so good. Like, I just feel like we haven't gotten into that. Even with episode 7, 8, and 9, like some of the music is like really, really good. Kylo Ren's song is really good. But I guess as like a big Star Wars nerd, like I just miss, good John Williams score.
I do, and I don't know when they're gonna do it again. When did Rise of Skywalker come out? Was that 2020? No, it wasn't during COVID. It was 2019, I think.
I think it was just before.
I think it was like 2019.
Right? Yeah.
And because I think it was like 2015, 2017, 2019 were the 3 movies, if I remember correctly. So we're pushing a half decade without a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
And I'm really curious where they even go with that.
I hope they lean into like the orchestra. And then
they will.
I hope.
I think there's a certain standard of I think the practical effects, the orchestra score, I think all of that is considered like part of what makes Star Wars Star Wars.
Yeah.
So I don't think they'd cut corners on that.
Yeah. That was a way big rabbit hole that I did not mean to bring.
No,
us
there's
down.
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
Late nights with Jay and Luke.
This is the kind of stuff that Luke is really good at picking up on. That like I promise you, like his wife at one point we watched the show over at his house with our wives, and his wife made mention of a song in one of the scenes, and I was like, I haven't paid attention to the music at all in this entire show. I'm so like oblivious to like half of the shit that's going on. But anyway, anything else you want to hit?
No, man. I thought it was great overall. Like by no means am I complaining. Like I'm super happy so far.
Oh yeah, we're just talking through it. We loved it. We're excited for episode 3 next Tuesday. We will be here to break it all down. As always, we appreciate you guys for supporting the show. We will see you guys then.
Thanks a lot.